Hey, how's it going, everybody? Week 2 of the Derek Corgan Show podcast. It is December 16th, 2017, getting near that end of the year. Alright, let's go over our Big 5 today. We're going to look at big teams, big contracts, big players. Players signing in free agency with other teams that are usually championship contenders or are on the upstroke, not teams going down, not garbage ones. Next up, big news again in the MLB free agency / trade world. We have Manny Machado from the Orioles, one of the best third basemen in the league, where he'll be going at the start of next season. After that, we have more NBA coming up. We have the Eastern versus the Western Conference, breaking it down, looking at it from this season, years past, going forward. And last, we're going to finish it off, not really finish it off, but news-wise with some NFL football, looking at the playoff picture. Coming up on the last few weeks of football, kind of looking at what teams are in, what teams are out, what some might be able to do to get in. So without any further ado, let's kick this thing off. We're going to start it off with big teams, big players, big contracts. Free agency, always a big deal, especially now, especially in the NBA. Players like Kevin Durant a few years ago signing with the Warriors at the top of their game. KD is obviously one of the best players in the league. Best for his position, probably, if I had to say. Especially in the West. Best in the West for his position, easily. The Warriors have just been amazing the last few years. And it's no wonder. I mean, they have Steph Curry. They have Draymond Green, Kevin Durant. All awesome players that put up big numbers every year. They're all consistent. That's the biggest thing. All their players are proven players. You aren't getting these wild cards who had one good season, who don't have a sustainable playing model. That's kind of what we saw in the NFL a few years ago with players like Russell Wilson, Robert Griffin III, Kaepernick, all those guys running that read option. The read option, whenever it first came out, it was unstoppable. Took the Niners to the Super Bowl, took the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. It was just amazing. The NFL wasn't ready for it, but once you figure it out, it's not all that great anymore. Look at the Seahawks. Good team, not great. Not where they used to be. That's not just because of the offense. You can't just attribute that to that. Defense too. But getting back to our topic, guys like that, guys like Melo going to the Thunder, that's a little different. I threw that one in there because that's different than KD going to Golden State when Golden State was pretty much at the pinnacle of the NBA, at least at the pinnacle of the Western Conference, even though you had teams like the Spurs, the Rockets at the time. They were the best. They still are one of the best teams. I believe, without looking at it right now, that they are tied with Golden State. I may be wrong. The Rockets might have one up on them. But Melo going to the Thunder from the Knicks is different. It's like a tier down. The Thunder, while they were never in the championship talk, they were always making the playoffs. They were a competitive team. They had Westbrook. They had good players around KD. It wasn't like he was the only player on that team. That wasn't a one-man show. Not by any means. Because we go to, like, New Orleans, who is a one-man show. They're never in the championship talk either, but they're not always making the playoffs. They have in the last few years. They're never in the mid-seeding range. They're at the bottom. They're always the ones going out in the first round. They're playing teams like San Antonio. They're playing teams like Golden State. They're playing teams like Houston in the first round of the playoffs, and they're going out easily. No problem. No questions asked. But Melo, coming from a team that wasn't a contender, where he was a one-man show, but not on a contending team. And people get so fed up with players who think, they say, oh, it's all about the money. It's all about whatever. No, they want to be on a good team. Can you imagine playing or doing something, not even playing a sport, but let's just say you do something your whole life, and it's like you never get anything for it. You're just kind of there. I mean, Melo, obviously, whenever he was in New York, he had flashes of greatness, but it's hard to play 5-on-5 basketball when you're the only threat out there. That's tough to do. It's tough to flourish on a team where you're really the only threat. They're the only one, or you're the only one the teams are scouting on. You're the only one getting double covered. You're the only one having to pick up when you bring it down the floor. That's tough. That is not easy to be a player on a team like that, where KD had Russell Westbrook. He had other players before that, like Thabo Sefolosha. He had other players. That's why I think people got way more butthurt and upset when KD left the Thunder and went to Golden State than when Melo left New York. Because it's like, the Knicks weren't going anywhere, but neither, the Thunder weren't exactly just shooting up exponentially. They were stagnant too. So it depends what both those players were looking for. If they're both, let's say they're both looking for a championship, well, KD definitely went to a team where he can get a championship, and he did get a championship. Melo did not. Melo went to that stagnant team, but that stagnant team looked promising. They weren't a stagnant team at the bottom, they were a stagnant team in the middle. They were a stagnant team who made the playoffs. Melo came from a stagnant team who didn't make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, who could this year. The Knicks could very well make the playoffs this year. I wouldn't be surprised one bit to see them in the playoffs this year. But people freaking out about players signing these massive contracts with good teams, they need to get over it. Okay, this is a business. You only have so long to play. And if all you do care about is money, why are you signing, people say that it's about money, but these guys are smart enough, they're not signing with a team who has two other, all-stars, like the Thunder. If Melo really only cared about money, he would not have signed with the Thunder. It's stupid. Why would he? Go to a team where you'd be the best player. He's not the best player. Russell Westbrook's the best player. That's a good team. He wants a championship. And I hope the Thunder can be competitive because the West is just way more fun, in my opinion, to watch than the East. The East has picked it up this year, which we're going to talk about later. But it's like moving forward into the future with these free agents. It's like LeBron. That's obviously big talk. Been big talk lately. LeBron possibly going to the West. LeBron's never played in the Western Conference. And I really don't think at this point in the Kings' career, it would be smart for him to do that. Because in my opinion, you go to the West to get better. You go to the West to play more competitive basketball. Because all around, those teams are better. As a whole, the Western Conference has better players, better teams comparatively to the East. So, at this late stage in his career, what's he looking to do? Well, I think he's looking to win championships. He's looking to break records. He's looking to do stuff like that. And so it just doesn't make sense whenever people think he's going to go to LA, people think he's going to wherever in the West, joining one of those super teams. It just does not make sense to me for him to do that. LeBron's already made his name. He's not looking to make a name for himself. He's raking in money. Do I necessarily think he's going to stay in Cleveland? That's yet to see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But as far as people saying he's going to go to the Lakers, that's ridiculous. LeBron is not going to the Lakers. LeBron is too good of a person overall, a player in these late stages, to go to a team like the Lakers, who do have some promising young players, like Lonzo Ball, obviously, who he talked to the other night. I don't like to go off what that Reddit user said because, whatever. I'm just not going to bring that up. That's not for me to say. But I can see where people are coming from when they say he wants to go to that. But I just don't think LeBron, in this stage of his career, is ready to start rebuilding a team. That's just like D. Wade, who played for the Bulls and now plays for the Cavs. He was not interested in rebuilding a team. He had already been on a team, the Heat, who rebuilt and then went on to win things. He's old. I'm sorry, but he is. He's not looking to rebuild right now. Neither is LeBron. So the notion that he's going anywhere near Los Angeles is completely asinine, stupid. And the reason that I've kind of only brought up the NBA, you're probably wondering, because there's a lot of big NFL players who are going to be free agents this year. Kirk Cousins. There's some other ones. Kirk Cousins just kind of comes to mind because of the team he plays for. But it's so different in the other three major sports compared to the NFL. The NFL is 11 guys working as a unit all the time. Every play, it takes all 11 people on each side of the ball to accomplish the goal. Baseball. At any one moment, it could be just the pitcher, catcher, and batter. You go out there alone on offense. I mean, yeah, you can have base runners, whatever. But it's not that whole unit mentality. If you watch a pitching battle in baseball, the fielders aren't doing anything. If this guy's striking out like 12 batters in a game, no one's flashing any leather. Pitcher's hot. In the NBA, like I was talking about, you can have one player who makes your team great. You can have one player who digs your team, one or two players who takes their team from, the toilet to a consistent playoff team. Just like the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers, around 2010, I would know they went to the playoffs in 2011. They were having rough times. It was rough before Damian Lillard got there. When Damian Lillard got there, they completely turned it around. They have not missed the playoffs since. They haven't had a losing season since. They won 54 games one year. A couple years ago when the Heat won 54 games. Now, there were other people on that team besides Damian Lillard, like LaMarcus Aldridge, Nicholas Batum, but they weren't doing anything. Yes, they went to the playoffs in 2011, but it wasn't consistent. It wasn't where the level they are at now. And that can be attributed to C.J. McCollum as well. But C.J. wasn't a big name 4 years ago, whenever Damian Lillard was the big name with L.A. there. So it just goes to show that the NFL and that free agent talk is so different from the MLB, the NHL, and the NBA, because the NHL is the same way. The NHL is a lot less frequent in scoring than all of those sports, especially basketball. If a guy scores, 2 points in a night, that's an awesome night. That's like a dude dropping 40 in the NBA. It does not happen very often. So when we talk about free agency, we can kind of group the other sports together and leave the NFL out because it's this whole other monster, whole other dynamic. So we'll go ahead and move on to a little bit of baseball. Have a decent amount of baseball in this one, just like we did last week with Shohei Ohtani, who's actually injured now. So we're going to see how that plays out. But Manny Machado, another big move. Big trade move, just like Giancarlo Stanton going to the Pinstripes. Big move in that division. The Orioles basically know that he's leaving. The Orioles haven't done diddly poo in years with him. You don't even hear about the Orioles without hearing Manny Machado in the same sentence. This dude is the Orioles. They're not that competitive. Let's be realistic. They aren't. But Manny Machado is huge trade bait. Huge. And I talked about this last week. When you have guys you don't think you're going to re-sign or don't think are going to re-sign with you, trade them. This GM is actually making a good move. Thank you. You're not being a Chris Greer. You're not being a whatever the Royals GM's name is. And waiting for these guys to do absolutely nothing to win your team anything, because we've seen it. So, little different with the Royals, because they had success with those guys. The Orioles haven't had crap with Manny Machado, and he's not going to re-sign. Orioles fans know this. Everyone knows this. He's not re-signing. Okay? Get everyone else. Orioles fans, I think, know that first. The whole rest of the league needs to realize that. Because I don't know why. I read some places that it's like split. There's no like middle ground. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell the guy's going to re-sign. There's some people that do. I don't know why. But I'm happy to see this. Baltimore fans, real ones, real smart ones, should also be happy to see this. Get some prospects. Get in the rebuilding stage. You should always be in the rebuilding stage unless you're going to the Fall Classic every year. So I'm happy to see this. What I'm not happy to see is that the owner is interfering with the GM's job. Okay, your GM has a job. Let him do it. Don't you think the GM knows you don't want him to end up in New York on the Pinstripes? Don't you think he knows that with Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge? Duh. It's the same division, you idiot. He knows this. So get your face out of this trade. You have nothing to do with it. You have nothing to contribute to this. He knows he's doing his job. Now what they don't want to do is send him to a team that doesn't need him, that they're going to get a bunch of good prospects for, that they're going to come out on top at first, and in mid-July, well, now Manny's on the Yankees. Manny's on the Pinstripes. That's what they don't want to see. They're obviously not going to directly trade him within the division, especially not to the Pinstripes. That's said and done. That's easy. But what they have to look at are teams who are actually going to keep him around. Teams that aren't going to just trade him after using him for a half a year. And that is a real concern. I don't blame him for that. But I read an article written, I believe it was on the 14th, Thursday, about it was the most circle round article I've ever read. It literally didn't tell me anything besides, well, they're not going to trade him in the division. Obviously, they're not going to trade him in the division. It said that the Diamondbacks and the White Sox are looking at Manny Machado, and then it went on to explain basically, well, they really aren't. It had no substance, but whatever. It was saying that the Diamondbacks are looking at him, which, okay, well, the Diamondbacks don't have any cap space. We all knew this. You'd have to be pretty outside of MLB news to not know the Diamondbacks have no cap space. The Diamondbacks aren't worth very much. They don't have a lot of money. They have guys like JD, who wants $13 million a year. They have guys like Zach Greinke, who make like $30 million a year. Paul Goldschmidt, who makes like $20 million a year. You're telling me that team is going to go ahead and sign Manny Machado, who's projected to get $18 million if he were to go into free agency? You got to be kidding me. That's ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. And then it went on to talk about the White Sox, and it was another pile of garbage. Just, well, they're looking at him, but they're not really looking at him, and blah. Okay, cool. So, really, I don't know where he's going to land. I really have no idea. There's a lot of stuff right now that the Orioles have to consider. They're considering actually putting in a clause in the trade deal that says, well, in the 2018 season, you're not allowed to trade him to any part of the Pinstripes franchise, which would be kind of interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think it'd be interesting to get that kind of stuff being put in to trades now. See that it puts limitations on what the teams can do with the player after. So, I'm sure that'll be pretty interesting. I talked about the Diamondbacks a little bit. Personally, my favorite team, I'm from Arizona. And I don't think JD is going to stay unless the Diamondbacks clear up major cap space. I would love just Dingers to stay. But I don't think that's going to happen, so the Red Sox, who are like the Pinstripes and basically have unlimited funds, looking at two players. And the reason I included both these guys is because it's relevant to what I've been talking about last show and this show. Boston is looking at Eric Hosmer from the Royals, who is going to be one of the top free agents because of the Royals GM not trading him, not trying to re-sign him, being a cheap ass, and JD, who I'm not mad about the Diamondbacks not re-signing him. They brought him in for a year, did awesome, made a playoff run. I'm okay with that. I wish they could trade him. I don't know. I don't feel like that's going to happen. So we can go ahead and move on back to basketball. Something that a lot of people talk about, especially this year. And that is the East versus the West, which in the previous few years have been, one team in the East, one team in the finals in the West, but the West was always much better basketball, more competitive, better games than, the Cavs playing the Heat. That was only on TV because Braun used to play for the Heat. Nobody wants to watch that game. Nobody wants to watch the Heat come into Cleveland and have LeBron drop like 35 on them. That's boring. I would like to watch the Rockets and the Trailblazers play. Or Anthony Davis square off with, well, I don't know if he's back or not. I'm pretty sure he is. I could be wrong. Pretty sure AD's back, but I'd love to watch him square off with, like, I don't know, the Thunder. Why not? I'll watch that. A little bit of Western Conference action. Games that actually mean something. Games that are interesting and have real stock in what's going to happen in the future. And just watching the Cavs, who are going to go to the finals. But this year, the East has a few teams. They're turning it up. They obviously have Cleveland. They have the Celtics with Kyrie. A little bit of bad blood there. That's fun. I'll watch that game. Those are two good teams. And there's extra. This isn't just good basketball being played. This is a story. This is Kyrie leaving almost without a trace from Cleveland, going over to Boston, turning it up with Jason Tatum, Al Horford. Boston's starting five is awesome. I love them. They go out, they play a lot of minutes, they score points, they're fun to watch. Fun to watch. The Raptors, they're awesome too. I didn't expect that for one, but I'm sure someone's going to say, oh yeah, I knew the Raptors were going to be good, but, you know, I didn't expect not to be as good as they are. Not to be as good as they are. But, you know, I kind of thought, are teams in the East really as bad as people say? I'm not talking about the bottom of both, whatever, the Bulls, the Suns, those teams. Who cares? Really? Like, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the top 8 in each. The teams like Golden State, the Rockets, the Blazers at the 6th seed, who have had a kind of a rough stretch. Teams like that. And in the East, the Cavs, the Celtics, the Raptors. That's who I'm talking about. And the Timberwolves. Teams like that. Not the Mavs, who seem like they just go out and say, well, we kind of want to draft picks, so we're not going to play in the fourth quarter. Or the Hawks, or the Bulls. Bulls are now actually better than the Hawks. So happy the Grizzlies suck. I hate the Grizzlies. But the Rockets, they're awesome. 23-4. That's amazing. That's awesome. So when we look at it, really the top 3 teams, because those are obviously going to be the most competitive. That's who we're going to see in the conference finals, the NBA finals. They're all pretty similar. We're talking 23 wins apiece for Golden State and Houston, 19 for the Spurs. Go to the East, 24 for the Celtics, 21 for the Cavs, 19 for the Raptors. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The East does not have any losing teams like they usually do in the top 8. Where the West has 2 500 teams in the Pelicans and the Thunder. 2 500 teams. Blazers 1 game above 500. But what this kind of has stemmed from, why I'm talking about this, is kind of going back to what we talked about earlier in the show. LeBron possibly going to the West, going to the Lakers. The Lakers, who are in 11th place, they're 10-17. What that would do, whether that would make the NBA better or having it be more even. because it's kind of that you can't have your cake and eat it too. Obviously it'd be awesome if every team was super competitive and it was, kind of always different teams in the playoffs and the finals, conference finals. That'd be fun, but if we can't have that, wouldn't you rather have like just one conference be really competitive? That's kind of the question here. What do people think? Should we have that even talent level? Should we have one team be much better or one conference be much better? That's something we have to consider going forward for the future of the NBA. What's going to be more fun to watch? What's going to be more interesting? And I think it won't come, the East getting more competitive with the West as an overall conference won't come from free agency. The West is aging. The East is young. Players like Jason Tatum, players on the Sixers, those guys who are young, that's what's going to even it out. It's not going to come from free agency. The East has absolutely nothing. No team in the East, short of the Celtics and the Cavs, and the Celtics weren't even good until this year, have nothing to offer free agents like Melo, who want to win a championship. Stuff like that. And it kind of comes back to looking at the players in the East and the West. The West lights it up in the top players in the league. There's only one. Now, granted, it's the number one player in the league in the East. There's only one top 10 player in the East, and that's LeBron James. One. It's arguable to say that Kyrie Irving's now a top 10 player. I'll give that to you if you can make a case for it. But the West is aging. They have guys in their prime. KD, Steph, Draymond, guys like that who are in their prime. That's where they get their success from. So what I'm kind of looking at is, if you want to win a championship, you need to go to one of two teams in the East, but I feel like the West has about 5 teams who are definitely championship contenders in the next few years. Rockets, Golden State, even the Bucks in the East, actually. I left them out. Kind of want to show them some love. But the Bucks in the East with Giannis, if they were to get, one more player, kind of round out that roster, maybe I could see them. But in the East, Bucks, Raptors, Cavs, Celtics, top 4 right now, I could see them in the future. They got young players being successful. In the West, that's more of a right now thing. Next 1 to 2 years, Rockets, Golden State, Spurs are pretty old. I really don't see the Nuggets or maybe the Timberwolves. I don't see the Nuggets. I don't see the Pelicans. The Trailblazers, it seems like they can just never, ever get to where they need to be. They want to, they try hard. They can never just get over that hump because they always have to play those other teams. So, as far as championship talks, no. Blazers, nowhere in question. You're not beating the Rockets in 7. You're not beating Golden State in 7. Could maybe beat the Spurs. You're a pretty young team for the West. But other than that, I just don't see it. So, we can move on to football now. We haven't talked much football on this show total. We talked about Carson Wentz, Jared Goff last week, and unfortunately, as we all saw last Sunday, Carson Wentz tore his ACL. He'll be out for the season. But I still don't think that's going to take the Eagles out of the playoffs. I just don't think they're doing anything. They're too young. even with Carson Wentz, they were just too young. They don't have that experience. It was one of those things like the Nuggets this year. Oh, sorry. In the NBA, who are doing really well, but it's like, it's that sustainable success, that consistency that they just don't have. So, I kind of have my playoff picture, what I think the playoffs are going to look like. I did not include wild cards. Just didn't feel like it. Kind of just did division winners. I might talk about wild cards next week. There's a lot of big divisional matchups this week, so it'll kind of narrow it down, clarify what the wild card situation is going to be, and that might be a topic. Just let me know on Twitter, Midmo Sports Talk, if that's something you want me to talk about, the wild card. If it's not set completely, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but so let's get right into it. Start off with a pretty easy one, AFC East and the Patriots. It's kind of a thing you come to expect every year. Pats winning the division, none of those teams going. Dolphins went last year in the wild card, got totally curb stomped by Pittsburgh, but yeah, that's what's going to happen. Not too interesting. I'm sure we'll see the Patriots in the AFC championship game. Now the West, AFC West, this is a little more interesting. There's 3 teams who have the same record. 3 teams, I believe, who have the same record. Let me just verify that real quick. No, I'm wrong. Chiefs are 7-6, Chargers 7-6, Raiders 6-7, Broncos 5-9. They're done. Whatever. Raiders, I think they're done too. I don't see them going anywhere up. They might win another game. They might not. Whatever. Chargers and the Chiefs play today, Saturday, December 16th. This game right here will tell everything. I know that the Chiefs have 2 more games, one being against the Dolphins, and I believe the last one being against the Raiders. But it comes down to this game, because I just don't see, if the Chiefs lose, the Chiefs could also lose to the Dolphins. I'm not saying the Dolphins are a powerhouse, but the Chiefs aren't the hottest team in the NFL right now. The Dolphins are on a little bit of a streak. Coming off that Monday night win against the Pats, they might be able to do something in Arrowhead. It is the Chiefs at home. That's a huge home field advantage, as we all know. But I really think if the Chiefs can't get it done tonight, the Chargers are going to take it. I can't help but thinking that. The Chargers play the Raiders in the last week. I think that'll be easy win for the Chargers. I think the Chargers will beat the Jets. So we can go ahead and say the Chargers are going to win their last 2 games, where the Chiefs kind of have a toss-up. They'll beat Denver, I think. Even though it's in Denver, I think they'll beat them. I know sometimes that division has a lot of toss-ups, but I think it'll happen. The Chiefs also, like I said, have the Dolphins. So the Chiefs, I feel like if they win tonight, that means that gives the Chargers 1 loss. They're both 2-1. And if they're both 2-1, the Chiefs will probably win the division if they tie in the division. So it really does all come down tonight. So you heard my picks. Chargers win tonight. Chargers going to the playoffs by winning the AFC West. Chiefs win tonight easily. Chiefs going. It's going to put the Chargers, even if they win those last 2 games, I feel like if the Chiefs can get a little bit of momentum by winning that divisional game, they play at home today. They play the Dolphins at home. Dolphins aren't the best cold weather team, even though they do play a lot in cold weather, whether that be in Foxborough, Buffalo, or New York. They play a decent amount. Not a great cold weather team. They get spanked by the Patriots in Foxborough a lot. So you heard it there. We can go up north. Once again, kind of done deal. Steelers going to take it. I think the Steelers and the Pats will be, even without Ryan Shazier, I still think it'll be the Steelers and the Pats in the AFC Championship. I don't know who's going to win that, but we'll have to see. Patriots did lose to the Dolphins last week. You know, that's a divisional game. You can't base anything off of that. They play all the time. The Dolphins regularly beat New England in Miami. It's kind of funny. The Dolphins always beat New England when New England is really good, and the Dolphins are not so good. Last year, Dolphins went to the playoffs, got swept by New England. Other than that, Tom Brady's 6-9 in Miami. 6-9. Let that sink in. Probably his worst record anywhere. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. The South, another interesting one. You basically got two fun divisions, and then you got the two that are just like, yeah, that's what's going to happen. Bohica. South, the Jags, kind of a dark horse. And the Texans, another dark horse, started out hot, lost to Deshaun Watson. Kind of had a rocky road since then. Obviously lost J.J. Watt again at the beginning of the season. But the Jags have a pretty decent schedule. They play the Texans this week, a divisional game, which I think they'll win. I think they'll take that one. They play the Niners. They'll beat the Niners. I'd say that's pretty self-explanatory. Niners are decent right now. They got Garoppolo. But, I just don't see it happening. I don't see it. Then they play the Titans. And I'm going to get to that, because I think the Titans could also pull out that division. Titans have the Niners this week, which they'll beat. I think they'll beat them too. They'll have a little bit of momentum going into the Rams, but I think they'll still lose to the Rams. They're not beating the Rams. Sorry, but it's not happening. Not going to happen. Then they play the Jags. So, this is kind of that same AFC West type deal, where both teams, one team can come in 2-0 and one team can come in 1-1, and we could finish in a tie. Both teams 2-1, same record. That's obviously a possibility. I'm not going to indulge too much more on that because I don't know those teams very well. I don't watch them very much. But if I had to pick, this is like a coin flip for me almost, two very evenly matched teams. I'm going to go with the Jags. I'm just going to take Blake and the Jags to pull it out over the Titans in that division. Still the Eagles, they have enough of a lead. I don't see Dallas pulling it out. I don't see it happening. This is NFC now. NFC East, like I said, pretty done deal. The Eagles aren't going anywhere. Sorry. And if they do, call me wrong, call me an idiot, whatever. The West, I believe in the Rams. I think they're going to do it. Like I said, they're going to beat the Titans. They're a solid team. I don't think the Seahawks are as solid of a team as the Rams are. And I think the Rams are going to run up the score on the Seahawks. I don't see the Seahawks beating them. The Rams' defense is too solid. Seattle's defense has holes like Swiss cheese. So, that's my pick. Got the Rams in the West. Next, NFC North, which has turned into also a one-team division. Vikings, been playing awesome all year. Lighting it up. Love it. Aaron said he said he's not coming back to save the Packers. Packers are done. They're not going anywhere. I don't think the Vikings are going anywhere in the playoffs, really. They could in the NFC. The NFC is definitely not as strong as the AFC. Not as predetermined, so we could see a little bit of a surprise. And then NFC South, Saints, just based on their schedule. They got an easy schedule to ride this thing out. I don't see any other team in the NFC South doing anything to mess that up. Not the Falcons, not anyone. So that takes care of our NFL segment here. We're going to move into our final segment, which isn't really about sports news. It's more about a sport in particular and the people who play that sport. I'm talking about baseball players. Now, as you've seen, I love the game of baseball. I don't think anyone would debate that. I love it. I talk about it a lot on this show. I like to analyze it. I think it's really interesting to analyze baseball. But I'm not talking about pro players. I'm not talking about minor league players. I'm talking about lower level baseball players. The most annoying athletes you'll ever meet. Not all of them, but you know the ones I'm talking about. You know exactly the ones I'm talking about. I'm talking about the guys who wear nothing but baseball apparel. The guys who have cabbage, lettuce, whatever you want to call it, in the back because they think they're like cool, like hockey players, but they're not because hockey players are actually cool. Baseball players, especially from like middle school level to college level. College, it changes because college is like real competitive, not like high school. High school's a joke. High school baseball players are the most annoying. People give football players such a bad rap. Okay, football players constantly in the weight room, studying plays, preparing for next week, watching film. Do you know what high school baseball players do? They walk around holding some bat. They're like, yeah, would have watched the game last night, but I got some cage time. Know absolutely nothing about professional baseball. Don't follow it whatsoever. And they always feel the need to tell you that they play baseball. Okay, kid, you're like 6'1", like 175. You're a string bean. My only guess is that you either play baseball or golf. Because you don't play soccer, because soccer players also all have the same haircut. And guess what, kid? You don't have it. You have your glasses flipped over on a flat bill hat with your Nike crew socks looking like a total tool. And the minute I ask you anything about Major League Baseball, you have no clue what's going on. No clue. You're so far behind in everything, and you just feel the need to be the largest tool on earth. You dress like a tool, you act like a tool. You just are. You're just a big tool. I'm not saying every high school baseball player is like that, but all of you know which ones are. And they are extremely annoying, and they make the game of baseball look bad. Because that's all they do. And then they always have an excuse to why they don't know anything about any other level of baseball. Okay, I'm going to compare this for a second, because I know what some of you are probably thinking. Well, just because you play a sport doesn't mean you have to follow it. Okay, I play golf. Probably the hardest sport to follow. It's extremely boring to watch unless you are very into golf. I am very into golf. I love watching golf. Don't you think if someone loves baseball so much that they wear nothing but MLB authentic apparel, Nike shorts that are really short, crew socks, and dusty old Nikes with upside down fake Oakleys on their hat with lettuce flowing out the back, I would say they have a fair amount of interest in the sport of baseball. Oh, but not enough to just go and watch it. Not enough to at least pay attention to some news. Not enough to talk about it with anyone who doesn't play baseball. Nope. That's all we can talk about are sliding shorts and metal cleats. Completely ridiculous. A little bit of a rant. Just kind of see a few guys as baseball workouts are getting underway. Let me go play catch for like 20 minutes. Hit a few batting practice balls. Yeah, really going to hone my skills so I can ground out every single play and miss ground balls in the infield. That about sums it up for our show today. Always appreciate all of you listening if you made it this far, if you made it more than like 10 minutes in. But I hope everyone has a good weekend. Gonna cut it off right here, everyone. See you next Saturday. This has been the Derek Corgan Podcast.